the majority of my clients are men. And the thing with male victims of sexual assault, they're the unspoken victims. It's really heartbreaking, to tell you the truth. I thought I knew a lot from being a criminal defense attorney, but this area of my practice really opened my eyes to the perverse world of degenerate sex that is out there. You never get used to it.
No, it's terrible.
It's the thing that has hurt them the most, that holds them back. It's something they carry around every day like a suitcase.
Attorney Brian Silber. Brian's a friend of mine for a long time, a very well-respected attorney in town for a very long time.
Welcome to Two Taps and Friends. Grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's dive into another episode of Two Taps and Friends.
Welcome back to Two Taps and Friends. I'm Daniel Rosenberg, the host of your show. And today I have a very special guest, attorney Brian Silber. Brian's a friend of mine for a long time, a very well-respected attorney in town for a very long time.
Thank you.
That's not a knock on your age, by the way.
That's okay.
But thank you for coming on, Brian. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And Brian, if you could give the viewers and the listeners an intro, tell them what you do, about yourself a little bit. Go, because you have no problem.
Sure.
You're like me, you have no problem talking.
No problem talking.
Right.
Well, so I've been practicing law 25 years, just about, right? I began my career as a prosecutor. That's how Danny and I met, of course.
Right.
I was on
The bad guy side.
Yeah,
Okay.
No question. It was not what I thought it would be, but I'm very thankful. By the way, I like to say I learned to be a lawyer working for Mike Satz.
Oh yeah, I bet.
I say I went to the Mike Satz School of Trial Advocacy, which was very much a sink or swim situation.
Right.
So
Try everything.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for that education. He's a great man.
Yeah.
So anyway, I began my career as a prosecutor, and as you reference, I left the dark side.
Right.
And I joined the due process side.
He's with the Jedis now. But
Yeah, I talk bad. It was a great experience.
Agreed.
We did a lot of fighting for victims. I really learned how to try cases. It felt good to fight for victims, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
You get a real serious case. You walk away at the end of the day feeling very good about yourself.
Sure.
But of course, there's a lot of gray matter in the practice of law. And when you're in law enforcement, sometimes it doesn't always feel the greatest.
Right.
But that's where you have discretion. In any event, after the state attorney's office, I opened my practice. I began doing state criminal defense. I did that for many, many years. But I'm the kind of person that evolves. I'm not a static individual. And my practice evolved away from defending people to defending their money.
Right.
And I became a specialist in what we call asset forfeiture defense. As you know, asset forfeiture is when the government seizes your property and they try to keep it because they claim, I don't know, maybe you're a drug dealer, money launderer,
Right. Whatever they're saying.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Assorted,
Right.
And I'll tell you even, that time in my practice really overlapped with the ballooning of the marijuana trade. As you had some states legal, some states illegal, the law, really the government, created a gray market for cannabis because people were going to legal states buying cannabis from unscrupulous producers. They'd show up with a bag of cash, walk away with a bag of weed, maybe more than a bag of weed, a bale perhaps,
Right.
And they drive it or ship it in some way to a jurisdiction where it's not legal, and they'd make a lot of money.
Right.
There's guys making $500,000 a month doing this.
Oh, yeah.
And from time to time, law enforcement would do a great job, and they would interdict those folks and take their cash. And a lot of times, actually, where I did my most success is where they accused people of being involved in that trade who really weren't. As you know, there's a lot of cash business that goes on out there.
Right.
You know that as a criminal defense attorney.
Oh, yeah.
You're a guy, for instance, that owns a little bodega in New York City. You're selling, snacks, things of this nature. It's cash, okay?
Right.
And there's a lot of cultures also that have cash in their culture.
Right.
Cuban people, for instance, do not trust banks for good reason.
Right.
Their banks got nationalized, and their relatives lost all their money. In many Muslim countries, there's a cash system. You see a lot of people sending cash back with relatives to Asian countries. So I represented a lot of people who had money taken from them at the airport, seized bank accounts, and of course, how do you get money back from the government? Well, you got to prove that it's legitimate. You got to be able to challenge them procedurally. And by doing that, I actually learned federal civil procedure.
Right.
I learned a lot of Florida state civil procedure. I learned how to try a case as a civil litigator. So my cases, very interestingly, were substantively criminal. You know, the allegation is you're a money launderer, you're some kind of sordid criminal. But it was litigated in the civil courts under the civil rules.
Right. Just interject so the viewers and listeners to understand. Sometimes when, just for the layman, if you're arrested and there's cash anywhere in that arrest, the government or the state will try to take that money, and they'll claim that it's, you know, it's an instrumentality of a crime or part of a, it's, you know, it's illegal, illicit funds. And that's how Brian and I work together on cases sometimes, you know, because it is a very niche practice.
If I recall, we did very well.
We did very well. We brought a lot of money back. Everybody made a lot of money. But I mean, like you know, it's a very niche practice. It's not something that everybody does. And again, because criminal defense attorneys usually don't do civil litigation, and then that's where Brian segued to do that. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Right. So it required me to really become an expert, not only in criminal law and criminal defense, you know, knowing, for instance, when there's an illegal search, an illegal interrogation, how to challenge very poor canine evidence. You know, the law enforcement, I think, has an over-reliance on canines. It's like the magic, but once you know how to challenge it, it's very easy.
Right.
But also, really, to become an expert in civil litigation, you got to understand how to do interrogatories, for instance. You got to know how to do civil discovery. You got to know how to use a motion for summary judgment.
Right.
You know, there's all these little ins and outs and details in civil litigation that are very different from the criminal rules. Very different.
And it expands your practice a lot.
Oh,
I mean,
and my mind. I really learned how to be a litigator, which segues to what I do now. My day-to-day bread and butter, I'm a mediator and an arbitrator.
Right.
And I remember when I first sat down to do it, I said to myself, I've been doing this my whole life.
Right.
I've been mediating deals all day long.
Right.
It was between the federal government that doesn't want to give up a penny and a defendant claimant who doesn't want to give up a penny.
That's what we're doing 90% of our
all
job.
day long.
Right.
So I was constantly mediating, you know, and every step of the way you got to justify your decisions on evidence, on procedural issues, and that's what I do in my mediations. You have a case, you know, you could have slipped on a banana in Publix. I'm not going to kumbaya and tell you your case is worth $5 million. You know, it's really a question of what does the evidence show, what are your procedural issues. You've been to trial as much as I have, and you know as well as I do. Trial is anybody's game.
Right.
You don't know until you hear that verdict.
Right. Just background on mediation. Let me explain that, because you'd be surprised, Brian, and I'm sure you're not surprised. You see this a lot, but a lot of people don't know what the hell mediation is. How many times you have somebody call? I've had people call me, like, they're telling me I have a mediation, and so the way it works in the court system, especially in the civil side, more so than in criminal, they don't use it really. But, you know, as a case litigates, a judge will order the parties to go to a mediation. And what is a mediation? Mediation is a meeting with an independent mediator, such as Brian, right? When Brian built up certain, you know, judges know Brian. He has a really good reputation. They're like, you know what, I'm sending you all to Brian Silber, right? So the parties now have to go, and they usually have to split the fee, depending on the circumstance. Sometimes not. Sometimes one party has to pay. But they split Brian's fee, and he has a fee. And then they come to his office, and Brian is now an independent mediator. Now, arbitrator is different. I'll get to that. Mediator meaning he's going to hear both sides, and he's trying to negotiate with both sides based on his litigation experience, based on his knowledge of the judge, based on his knowledge of the facts and the evidence, and he's going to try to come to an agreement. And judges love mediations because it takes it out. They don't have to deal with it, because otherwise they can litigate for a week in trial. They got to hear all these motions. And that's a big part of mediation. And Brian will explain that a little bit more too. And then there's an arbitrator. An arbitrator is where he becomes the judge, basically. Where he's doing that, and he's going to hear the evidence. You're putting on the evidence to him. He makes his findings, and the judge is bound by that findings, or he's not bound by it, but he goes by that finding, and he makes a ruling on the case. And just to give the background, that's what mediation arbitration is. So if you sue people in small claims court, you're going to end up in front of a mediator. If you sue people, if you get divorced, you're going to be in front of a mediator. You know, it's a requirement in a lot of these things. So that's what it is. So go ahead.
I love it. Honestly, it's a puzzle,
Right.
okay? Because you got to figure out where each side is coming from. You know, everybody has the things that they absolutely, under no circumstance, will walk away from. and you have to respect that. But my job really as a mediator, I like to show even the most seasoned lawyer, because, you know, as lawyers, we adopt our clients' cases.
Sure.
And if you're a good lawyer, you really get your heart and soul into it.
And you could sell it.
Absolutely. And it's easy to almost sometimes drink the Kool-Aid a little too much, okay? And my job as the independent third party that has no pony in the outcome, okay? The plaintiff wins or loses, it's not going to affect me. The defense wins or loses, it's not going to affect me, right? I point out, hold on a second. It's not as clear-cut as you think. Here's your problem. So at mediation, what we're doing is we're negotiating the present value of your case. What is the present value of a case? Well, it's what a jury reasonably might do, less the cost, which is not only experts and things like this, but your attorney's fees, right? Less the sorrows of it. What do I mean by that? The heartache, right? It's those
Stress,
sleepless nights. If you've ever been sued or you've ever been in litigation, you're going to be up at night, and if you aren't, you're not telling me the truth, or you don't have an important case. Okay? Any normal person's going to be bothered by it. Okay? And then, of course, is the big one, and that's risk. Okay? And unlike on Wall Street, you know, where maybe you're quantifying you know, risk in these things to come up with a stock price, there's no way to quantify really risk in a case. It's really an instinct. It's really an assessment. So what my job is to really be a guide to the litigants and to show them, yes, absolutely, I agree, these are the strengths of your case. Here's your risk profile. Here's your cost profile. Here's your attorney fee profile. Here's your sleepless nights profile. And then you add the pluses, subtract the minuses, and that's where I think you ought to land. So now we target that as your ideal present value of your case, and then from there it's a question of negotiating. You don't know what the other side's tolerances are. They might be so upset and bothered by the fact that they're in litigation that they put a tremendous premium on getting out of the heartache. Okay, it may not even be a risk thing. It's just they can't deal with it anymore. They want it to end.
And it's tough. I found and to do what Brian's doing, though, you have to earn you have to earn your way to it, because you have to have the experience. You've had to have been in front of these judges and gone through trials, lost trials, won trials, like to be able to really sit and tell the person, listen, you know, you're exposed in this way. This argument's not going to fly. Or you're going to spend this amount of money and judges aren't going for this argument, or it's a big thing. Family law is like the toughest, I think, because of the emotion. I mean, is that something that you've gotten into?
So family law is extremely emotional. You know, the cases I really concentrate my mediation practice on are business disputes, you know, breach of contract.
Business owners with a logical mind. That's what I was saying. You're a logical dude. You're a reasoning person. That's kind of what we build.
Absolutely.
That's how we think.
And
so
they
it's
understand
easier
risk.
to deal with. Risk. And like, they're not thinking with emotion, right? So go ahead, I didn't interrupt.
They think with emotion too, but it's a tempered motion.
But to attain a goal, right? Not just screw her, I will sit here, or screw
100%.
him, I'll blow all of our life saving, right?
I got to tell you, a lot of business disputes, people feel wronged, especially when it's between partners.
Oh yeah, it's there for sure.
I do a lot of property damage claims. You know, there's hurricane claims, a lot of personal injury cases. Really, what you see in the civil courts, the garden variety, you know, a regular circuit civil division, there isn't something I haven't handled, and I love it. I really enjoy it. It's a puzzle. I have to figure out where each party's coming from. I study the case in advance. I walk in prepared. Sometimes I know things about the case that the attorney covering the mediation doesn't know. I always kind of chuckle at that because I'm your typical over-prepared attorney. I really nerd out on the case. But to answer your question, to date I've not done family law because of that reason. But it is something that I expect with time I'll probably expand into. But yeah, family law is a lot of emotion because you're talking about people's
kids,
children, their relationship. Who gets what in terms of money and finances?
It's tough. So, you know, I have a civil litigation firm. I own a firm, Rosenberg and Cummings. You know, I'm the criminal is where I come out of, but my partner heads the civil side. And, you know, I'm involved in the litigation and that a lot, but civil's amazing because you get to learn so much about many. It's crazy, right? Like you become almost like this mini expert in things you wouldn't. Oh, I know about tractors, right? You know, because you have to do this whole, especially as a mediator, right? Like you probably have to dig into all these crazy topics, right?
And what's very interesting about it, you know, I used to say, as a criminal defense lawyer and as a prosecutor,
Right.
you learn what's going on on the streets.
Right.
You know what the street level
yeah.
crime situation is about,
yeah.
right? As a
Too
civil-
much.
Right, no question.
Right.
As a civil litigator and as a mediator, you learn about the problems and disputes that people have with each other in society, okay?
Right.
You bought a new roof for your house, and within a month it's leaking. Okay, so you have a claim against the roofer. You're minding your own beeswax, walking down the street, and a guy crashes his car into you.
Right.
Okay? Think of all the little, a hurricane blows through, and maybe it damages your roof a little bit, but not too much, and the insurance company doesn't want to pay, or maybe you're asking too much.
Right.
There's all these... those are just, common examples off the top of my head.
I remember one case we were on. I'm not going to name names, but it was about a construction. You were on one guy. I was on another guy. We
I
were
know that one.
co-defendants. But the prosecutor, poor thing, she was a prosecutor. She was just naive to the whole industry. Remember? Like, we were like, listen, oh, well, they're doing this. I'm like, listen, everyone in the industry works like this. I remember saying, the building we're sitting in was built in the same manner. Remember, it was regarding, like, guys on the payroll or not on the payroll.
If I recall, I think we even got someone in law enforcement to admit in deposition how the airport was built.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. That's exactly. But, like, it's funny that you get to gain this kind of knowledge, and civil is just a wide gambit,
Very wide. And it's very satisfying as a mediator when I settle a case.
Right.
Because you always start out, I'll give you an example. It's not uncommon in a personal injury matter. You have the plaintiff huffing and puffing, coming forward. I want $500,000. And then you go to the insurance company. Okay, we can offer him $5,000. and I have to look at them and be like,
I have a $1 million case. Like, no,
you understand the
case.
person's in a wheelchair, right? Like,
Right.
you're basically saying there's no offer here. That's not good faith.
Right.
Or I say to the lawyer, I understand you have a lot of damages in your case. That's why you're here.
Right.
But you have a problem with liability.
Right.
You're
Not gonna be able to prove this.
The witnesses say your client ran the red light first.
Right.
I'm just making up examples. But
Right.
You get into the nuances of these cases, and that's, the devil truly does lie in the details. And personally, that's just my style. My mediation, attitude is a reflection of my litigation attitude. It reflects how I tried my cases. I absolutely am a realist. I follow the evidence. I see what the procedural issues are. And that really is, the check engine light for me. That's the pole star. That's what I look at.
Right.
And it makes me objective. And I have an opinion. Sometimes people like it. Sometimes people hate it. That's okay. But that's how I analyze my cases. And honestly, it's better for the litigants to hear it from me than to hear it from a jury.
100%. Or
You
a
know,
judge.
and I really-
in front of the judge.
My job is to do the best for each side in these cases. But that's my day-to-day. You asked me what I'm doing with my practice.
Right.
That's my day-to-day. I also maintain a law firm with a very limited select number of clients.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this because this is fascinating.
Right. So the
talking about
website is victimrights.com.
Okay.
It's really not my main thing in terms of how I spend my time. But I represent, along with my partner, Adriana Alcalde, who many people in our
I
community
love
know.
Adriana.
We're not partners in the law firm, but we're partners in the cases. She's of counsel at my
Great
firm.
lawyer, by the way. Great lawyer.
Phenomenal.
Great person. Shout out, Adriana, if you're listening.
Yes.
Love you. Miss
Love you.
Great, great person.
She and I were trial partners when we were prosecutors. We tried many cases together.
Right.
She's now a partner at a law firm in New York City called Eisenberg and Baum.
Okay.
Tremendous lawyers, really great guys. They really know their stuff. Very good litigators.
Right.
And I partner with her to represent victims of sexual assault. And I maintain a small case count. They're very intense. It's a lot of, how would I say this accurately? It's very client involved. You have to be very sensitive.
Right.
You have to have a lot of empathy. But it's also very rewarding because for a lot of people to come forward, it's the main issue in their lives. It's the thing that has hurt them the most, that holds them back. It's something they carry around every day like a suitcase,
Sure.
like a heavy suitcase. It's tremendous and
Heavy work.
very heavy work. And circling back to something I said earlier, When I was a prosecutor, I was in the domestic violence trial unit, which I don't know how they're organized today.
I was there too as a defense attorney.
Yeah,
I was
back
public
then
defender.
it was a special unit,
Right.
and you really
Still
had,
is.
yeah, you really had to have, the heart and the mind to litigate on behalf of victims, because it's a very unique thing to represent a victim. It's not like a car accident.
Right.
The element of victimization is different than you did something wrong and you owe me.
Right.
Victimization is different to me than liability. It's
Right.
even greater, and many times there's a criminal element. Certainly in my cases, there's a criminal element.
And do you find that most of the cases are happening, because this sexual assault is that, the Me Too and all this, it's such a huge topic. Like, do you find it's in the workplace a lot of what you're seeing, or it's anywhere? What comes through the door? Is it a lot of work environment stuff?
So I do not really do the workplace harassment necessarily. My clients truly have been the victims of rape.
So literally
Actual,
the violence.
Literal, the worst thing you can think of. I have a very niche practice. Not that I wouldn't help someone in that situation. If it's a harassment circumstance, that's something I would send to Adriana. Really, their firm has somebody who really focuses on that.
Right.
Has a lot of experience dealing with that. This part of my career, I devote to representing really the worst of the worst. It's almost like having a death penalty practice. You know how there's attorneys that specialize in death penalty
Oh, yeah.
cases?
Oh, yeah.
My wife, for instance, you know her.
Yeah, yeah.
Judge
I know her
Perlman.
very well.
Retired Judge Perlman.
Shout out to Judge Perlman.
Yes,
We
my
miss you,
lovely
Sandy.
wife.
I haven't seen her in forever, so.
We'll get her on the show.
Hello. I'd love to have her on.
So before she became a judge, she was death qualified in the public defender's office.
Oh, yeah.
And
Fantastic lawyer.
only did death cases, at that point in her career. And that's how I treat these. It's almost like being a death penalty lawyer. And it takes a lot out of the attorney. It's a lot of hours and time, much more than regular
Tough
litigation.
cases.
You really have to have the heart, not only the mind, for this type of work.
Right. So, are these cases, but when you're helping, these people are suing these people, right? So
Correct.
So
So
it's probably either like a person that has at least money, right? That's CEO or I'm just trying to figure out
So-
where the everyday, not everyday.
very
who
good
you see
question.
these are,
That's an
you know?
excellent question.
Right.
So this part of my practice really is a subsect of personal injury. I guess technically you'd call me in that respect like a PI lawyer, okay? Although I don't
yeah.
see myself that way. I'm not an ambulance.
You're not chasing.
You're not
not
gonna-
to knock them because
No, not to knock them. I want your mediations.
No,
Yeah,
but you're
yeah,
not.
yeah.
You're not dealing with car accidents. You're not dealing with slip.
Right. I don't deal with car accidents,
right.
slip and fall.
Right.
We do deal with negligent security. That is a consideration.
Well, like unlit parking lots and all that kind of
That
stuff.
might be a
I'm
circumstance.
using just an example.
There can be corporate liability in different respects.
Sure.
I'm not going to talk about any of my cases.
No, you shouldn't.
yeah,
I wouldn't let you.
I find that to be very tacky, to be
No,
honest.
both of us subscribe. Just so you know, Brian and I both subscribe to the thought that we don't try our cases in the media.
No,
And
absolutely
there's
not.
some lawyers that do it, and that's power to you, but it's a full.
The people that have to try their case in the media, I find, are typically desperate, and it's because they can't try them in the courtroom. But that's okay.
Right. It's
That's
a
neither here
tactic.
nor there.
I guess it's a tactic,
Right? Yeah. Listen, to each their own.
Right.
But in any event, my clients are individuals that come to me, and I guess the way I describe it, I'm kind of like a civil prosecutor.
Right,
know-
because people, just real quick, just keep your thought process, but what people don't get, sometimes people come to me like, hey, do you handle this? Prosecutors prosecute crimes, federal and state, right? That's their job. So sexual assault, that's a crime, that's going to be prosecuted. Brian is in the realm of, not just prosecution. I'm going to go after you and your company for allowing this or doing this or whatever it may be. So just give me
Right,
a
so-
little bit of context there.
Quote unquote, like a civil prosecutor. What does a criminal prosecutor do? Well,
Right.
they're litigating to take someone's freedom
Right.
in one respect or another,
Right.
whether they're looking to incarcerate a person, slap them with a conviction that changed their life, put
Right,
them on
right.
probation, they're supervised,
Right.
So a state criminal prosecutor seeks criminal penalties.
Right.
I see myself as a civil prosecutor pursuing civil penalty. So how does that translate to? Well, the way our system of justice is set up, when you wrong a person, they're entitled to seek damages from you, okay? If you crash your car into me, you owe me to fix my car.
Right.
And to pay for my damages to my body if I'm injured, right?
Right.
There's also a thing called punitive damages, where the law recognizes that some acts are so heinous and so atrocious that the victim is entitled to a punishment on you, a monetary punishment. So my role as a quote-unquote civil prosecutor representing victims of sexual assault, I seek damage claims and also punitive damages. And if you don't understand that, I would say put yourself in the position of someone who was raped.
Right.
How do you ever make that right? Even when I'm successful and I'm able to make a recovery for a client, it still doesn't make it completely right.
Right. Psychologically,
no,
mentally, right? It's there
no.
with them forever.
And I'll tell you another thing. The majority of my clients are men. That may surprise you.
I was going to get to that. I found that, we talked about that. You said that to me when we were talking about this podcast. That's just, it's incredible to me how, I guess in our society, it's thought of like, men can't get physically raped. But talk to me about it. Talk to me what you're seeing, what's your thought process there, because I feel like it's been just exclusive. Like women have the power to make the not the allegation or to claim it. If it happens, it's only to women. But people don't know it's happening to both sides.
It's really heartbreaking, to tell you the truth. And the thing with male victims of sexual assault, I almost want to say it's like my subspecialty within the subspecialty, because it's just how this part of my practice unfolded.
Right.
Turns out, that's just the cases that I originated. I wasn't looking for it per se. In fact, I wasn't even really looking to get into this area. It stumbled upon me. I happened to represent a victim in the context they came to me because they knew I was a criminal lawyer. Okay. And it was such a moving experience. Truly, it really was like a heart-wrenching, and I was really able to help this person so tremendously. It came at the right time. I was looking for a change in what I was doing. I'd done forfeiture for many, many years successfully, but I was looking for a change, and it really found me. And, one thing leads to another. You start originating. You know that. You're in business.
Yep.
And it just turns out I represent a lot of men. And the thing with male victims of sexual assault, they're the unspoken victims. They really are. Men are least likely to report a sexual assault.
Right.
They're least likely to seek help for the trauma. And they're most likely to do, means of coping that are really self-harm, alcohol, drugs, other things. And I can tell you, representing the man, in my opinion, is very different.
I imagine, because there's that added element of the embarrassment, not that there's not on both sides, but of bringing it out and having the gall to push forward on it. I mean,
it's a very uncomfortable conversation. And by the way, that's how you know you're talking to a real victim. And I learned that as a prosecutor.
I don't think you can fake that, right?
I would say 99% of the time it cannot be faked. I'll never put it past, you learn something new every day.
Sure.
I wasn't there, but I will tell you, as a prosecutor representing victims, you could really see not only who's telling the truth, who's not telling the truth, but to what extent they were victimized. And when a human being is sitting across the table from you, they're shaking, they're breaking down, they can't get the words out. What could be really a 10-minute conversation takes 3 hours because they can't get through it. Right. There's certain tells that a real victim has. And you learn this very quickly as a prosecutor. And you have to, because you need to, a prosecutor's job is to seek justice, right?
Right.
So you need, as a prosecutor, to assess, is this authentic, is it inauthentic? And if it's authentic, to what extent was this person victimized? Because that's going to influence how I treat this case. Right. Am I seeking a life sentence or am I seeking a nominal sentence?
Right.
It all depends, right? So I take that skill that I developed and I apply it to what I do in this practice. And I'll tell you, a person's got to get through me first. If you can't convince me that you're telling me the truth or that something really happened, I'm just not going to take the case. I'm not saying it isn't true. I'm saying it's not for me to litigate. And I'm extremely selective in that respect.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. Can you talk to the viewers about, a lot of these, you hear a lot of cases where, people, this happened to them at a very young age, and they're now coming to find out about it. Whether it may be the religious person or maybe maybe it happened last week. What is the time frame for statutorily? How long can they bring it to you, and what kind of things are you seeing as far as common?
It all depends. There's different types of cases out there.
Sure.
Some people have claims for being a victim of sex trafficking. Some people have claims for being a victim of rape. Usually it's both when that occurs. But, you know, a common thread with a lot of victims of sex assault is that they don't report right away.
Right.
And it's for a variety of reasons. One being, you know, the clear one is people are ashamed of it. You know, who wants, especially a man,
Especially a man.
walk in and say, yes, another man forcibly raped me, and you know what that means for a man.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? It really rocks their psychology. And also, there's a whole series of emotions that a person goes through when they're victimized. You know, I'll tell you, I'll make a comparison that's not this, but will make the point. Look at people who are the survivors of individuals who commit suicide. Okay? At some point in our adult life, you're going to lose somebody close to you. Okay? A parent, a grandparent, God forbid, a sibling or a spouse. But it's different when it's a suicide. And people who survive someone who committed suicide, it affects them differently. There's a different pain cycle. There's a different, the way it hits is different, okay?
Right.
So too with this, especially when a man is the victim of a sex assault. And I don't mean to sound sexist.
Sure, sure.
It's just as wrong on a woman. Don't take
Right.
me the wrong thing. But the male psychology, we're very macho, we're very tough. We have a certain mentality about ourselves. You know, it just hits different. That's all I can tell you.
Right.
It hits different.
So a lot of the men you're seeing, is it men that have been raped by men? Are you seeing women that rape men? Do you see anything like that? Or
I see a lot of male on male rape.
male on male?
That's what I see.
Right.
And I will tell you, I thought I knew a lot from being a criminal defense attorney, but this area of my practice really opened my eyes to the perverse world of degenerate sex that is out there.
Oh, it's terrible.
And it's almost scary what people are doing, very secretly in many respects, some very open. But there is definitely an element of our society that is extremely sick, and for reasons I'll never understand, gets gratification by forcing themselves onto another person.
Right. I had to learn that in defending cases, sometimes you get the sex crime cases, and as a defense attorney, I don't like those cases. I
No.
try not to take those cases. You know, every once in a while I joke that I would quote a big fee to scare them away, but then they pay it and you get stuck on the case, you know, but like, you just really get to learn the world. And I remember, I'm not going to name his name, there was a prosecutor in the office, that's his job at the state attorney's, he's in charge of this unit. And you're talking about pedophilia and all this just terrible. And I remember sitting with him, and some of the stuff they can't even send you discovery. You have to go in there and you have to look at discovery in their office, you know?
I recently had that experience representing a victim. I had the displeasure. It was, I got to tell you, you never get used to it.
No, it's
Okay.
terrible.
For reasons we don't need to get into,
Sure.
based on some evidentiary issues. I had no choice, but I had to go to the Broward Sheriff's Office and observe video evidence of a sex assault.
Ugh.
And because it concerned, you know, admissibility and all these other issues, I as a lawyer, had to do my job and
Right.
observe it.
Right,
you
right.
know, and you sit there as a human being, and it's almost intolerable. It's just intolerable. I don't know how to explain it. It's horrible.
Right. That's a heavy practice here in Brian. You know what I mean? But
But I got to tell
those
you,
people need your help.
I'm a fighter,
Yeah, you definitely are.
and it triggers something in me. Son of a bitch. I
Yeah.
love fighting for these people. I got to tell you.
And if anybody deserves a
I
fighter,
don't care if I win or lose. The satisfaction, at least initially, is in the fight. Of course, I'm there to win. I'm not.
right?
Let's not mince words.
Right.
But you know, different people react differently. You are one to fight in the ring. You're definitely a fighter. I know as a criminal defense attorney, you've definitely had cases where you saw an injustice and you stood up.
Oh yeah, every day.
Very satisfying. And I'll even tell you, in my career as a criminal defense attorney, I represented people who were accused of sex offenses. I've seen both sides, and I'll tell you
Right.
something. Having seen both sides, it really helps me as an attorney representing a victim.
100%. I always say to people, like, I'm not one to like shit on prosecutors.
No, not
I
at all.
respect that job, and I always said I could do your job. I tell them a lot of times it's a disarming conversation. Like, look, I could do your job. I understand your job. I understand what you have to do. Really, you're a fighter. If you're a fighter, you're fighting on one side. These are what am I fighting for here? You're fighting for this guy's, right, his constitutional rights. Okay, let me fight for that. What are you fighting for here? well, this person was just, had a crime committed. You're fighting for their human rights, right? It's,
Right.
in some sense. So like, that is what it is. So I respect
I have
if you have that well-rounded, I always said, people say, like, sometimes judges come up and they're like, oh, it's a former prosecutor. And I'm like, sometimes those judges become the best judges. And then you have judges that were lifelong public defenders that are goddamn terrible, right? Like, I'm not going to name names, right? But like, that doesn't.
It's an individual thing. Look,
it's an individual thing. Can you be well-rounded?
As a
right?
practitioner, my attitude has always been, I look at these things objectively, and I'll tell you, you remember Judge Murphy, County Court Judge Murphy?
Oh yeah, Santa Murphy.
Ah,
I love him.
he took me under his wing as a young
I
attorney.
love him. One of my favorites.
I have to give him tremendous credit. And if he's watching here today, tremendous honor and thanks to you, Judge Murphy. You taught me how to try a case. You taught me how to analyze a case. And I really learned from him.
Smart guy.
And the walkaway was when I left his division, mid-trial, you could stand me up on my feet and switch sides, and I could try the other side's case. And I've always been that kind of lawyer, and I learned it from him.
Yeah.
And I give him tremendous credit for that.
That's a great skill. It's a great skill. Now doing what you're doing, like now you're having to go after these people. And do you find a lot of these cases are going to trial, or are these people, what is your experience and what you're seeing right now? Obviously, you can't talk about individual.
So I'll speak extremely generally.
Sure.
Just like in criminal law, in civil litigation, 99% of cases settle outside of court.
Right.
Very few cases
I think that's every field.
end up
Right.
in trial. But sometimes they do, and it's sex offenders as well as I do. They're the ones who are probably most in denial of what is going on.
It's unbelievable.
And I will even say that to you as a former criminal defense lawyer. Defending them was very challenging because you couldn't get the real story.
Right.
They're some of the most creative BSers I've ever encountered.
Right. They lie to themselves so well. They lie to themselves so well they don't think they're lying, and that's tough to read.
I don't know how many times you've had this conversation where I say to the to the criminal defendant client, I wasn't there. I'm not saying what you're saying is false. It's just that the jury's not going to believe you.
Right.
It's that simple. And here's this other piece of evidence that you can't overcome.
But the challenge, I've had a couple cases come through where they tell, and I don't do it, right? But they tell me what happened, and it's an example of like a kid that got, like, he says, molested by his preacher or raped by a preacher, and I'm not knocking the Catholic Church or anything. I'm just saying this was an example. But it was 25 years ago. Again, back to the question: how long of a window do you have to come
Circling
forward?
back to that,
Right.
We got diverted.
Sure.
So here's part of the thing with victims of sex assault.
Right.
Because of the nature of victimization, those who report don't always report right away.
Sure.
Okay, it's not like you just had a fender bender, on I-95 and you're calling 911.
Sure.
A guy just hit the back of my car. Okay, they sit on it, and it's because they're going through a cycle of victimization. Now, it also depends on the personality of the person.
Right.
Some people will report it right away. Other people report it later. Okay, but without getting into the details, there are different legal vehicles. Okay. That allow for a very long statute of limitations. Okay, and we're not going to get into a whole dissertation
Sure.
on that. But of course, I'm not going to take a case that's not viable. That's
Sure.
part of my analysis as a lawyer.
Sure.
There's no personal injury lawyer in the country that doesn't work on contingency.
Right.
I don't get paid unless I win. And by the way, I always did that in my asset forfeiture cases.
Right.
Okay, very simple. I don't think someone should pay me to lose. I should get paid to win.
Right.
Okay, and that's how I always operated. That's how
Thank God we don't do that in criminal, because sometimes here's the problem: the definition of losing or winning. Here,
Nobody would have a lawyer.
money recovery is different. I agree with you.
Because it's civil.
Right, but when you're talking about other things where, like, the definition of winning or losing, you get a guy who's facing 60 years and you get him probation. I can't believe I have to do
60.
probation.
If you get
right?
a 10, it can be a win.
Right, but I got to go to prison, right? So, like, you get the subjective things. But I agree with you. So you're saying that. So you're evaluating is one of the big prongs is it a viable case, right?
So-
is there recovery at the end?
Correct. So let's just talk generally. Let's talk about a car accident.
Sure.
Okay. Let's say a guy had a car accident. He has an injury, but it really doesn't manifest the physical problems till years later.
Right.
That can happen.
Right.
It's probably not common, but it can happen.
Right.
Okay. So the first thing is there liability? Can you prove liability? Can you prove damages? That's the second thing, right? Because you need both to win at trial. But then ultimately, you need a collectible defendant. right? You could have a person who's liable, you could have a person who caused you damages,
Right.
but you're not going to take on a case or go to the courts to get a piece of paper to frame it on the wall.
Right, right.
Okay, that's not what the civil courts exist for.
Right, right.
The civil courts are mostly about exchanges of money for damages.
Right.
And there's a lot of hurdles you need to surpass to get there.
Right.
And the stars have to align to make for a viable case.
Right.
That's why you got to have the trial experience and the knowledge of civil litigation. You got to know how to analyze, just like what I do in my mediation practice.
Sure.
It really goes hand in hand because what I do is extremely high stakes. They're very expensive cases to litigate, by the way. The experts you have to hire, they go on for many years when they litigate, you know, and you really got to know your stuff. You got to really, and that's, again, circling back to Judge Murphy, case analysis was his whole thing.
Right.
You got to be able to pick the winners and pick the losers. You got to call the balls and the strikes. You got to know when to hold them and when to fold them.
So there are windows, like if something happened long term, is it from the time you can remember it, or is it from the, you know what I mean? Those like nuances where like you remember.
I'm not going to get into these details because
Okay.
it touches on some of my pending cases.
Okay, we're not going to do that then.
But I will.
I mean, I've heard of hypnosis. I mean, I've heard of people like in therapy sessions learning about it. You know what I mean? But there
I
is
can't say I have a hypnosis case.
Okay, but there's but like the memory coming up in a hypnosis session is what I'm saying. You know?
I'll tell you what I
The
see
recapture
along those
period?
lines. I'll tell you what you see along those lines.
Right.
The person absolutely knows what happened to him. There's no mistaking when you're a male victim of a rape. Okay?
I agree with that.
There's no mistaking it. We're not talking about a groping. I'm talking about penetrative rape.
Sure.
Okay? You know it happened, but now you go through the victimization cycle, right? And part of that, particularly for men, is they take that painful knowledge that's taking up rent in their head and you compact it and you crunch it down like a tinfoil ball and you push that back into your conscience as far as you can. And men do their best, their darndest to forget about it and to get it out of their thoughts.
Right.
So now, when eventually something may happen or whatever, there's usually a trigger, something can occur that brings it to the forefront. And now it all starts coming back, okay? And now you're reliving it and you're seeing that video play in your mind, you know, where maybe many years or months or whatever it is went by where you did your darndest to suppress the thoughts,
Right.
okay? That is typical for victims of sexual assault.
Right.
Thought suppression, okay? But it doesn't mean they can't have recall later. All of us have some experience in your life where you have thought suppression.
Right.
Maybe it was a divorce or a breakup that was very emotional for you. I have a very dear friend of mine. There was a time in his life where his child was kidnapped and was taken overseas, and he had for a couple years no contact with his child while he had private investigators looking. Thank God, eventually they were reunited. But I can tell you, he tells the story many years later, and he had thought suppression. You know, in our conversation, we'll be like, "Oh man, I haven't thought of that in a long time."
Well, yeah.
You know,
I think I do it in my practice. 100%. So traumatized by cases.
right. But when you particularly are a victim of penetrative rape, you don't forget that. You don't need hypnosis to recall that.
I won't forget hearing about that, actually. So the answer is, if go see a lawyer that specializes it, and they'll give you the answer.
Absolutely. And I will tell you right now, no shame in saying this, better than me by far is Adriana Alcalde. She is hands down, the best sex crimes trial lawyer I have ever encountered. And that's why I work with her on these cases.
Yeah, she's top notch. So.
No question. And I got to tell you something. I'm the nice guy in this situation.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's saying a lot.
That may surprise some people.
That's saying a lot.
Okay?
No, like nice.
don't-
Nobody's ever said you're not nice.
You
Tough
don't,
is what they would
you
say.
do not want it to get to the point where Adriana is taking
Oh
that.
yeah, she could be a tough cookie.
'Cause
Thank goodness she's a friend.
Oh, more than a friend. I consider her family. I love her dearly.
Will do. But listen, I'm going to have you back on for many more
Thank you.
times because it's always just great to talk to you and learn about what you're doing. You want to tell the viewers where they can find you or look you up your website?
Sure.
Or all that?
My wife and I, the lovely, absolute lovely star of my life, Judge Perlman, when she left the bench, we created a mediation company for her. She did so well, I decided to take it on also. Like I said, I love it. It's a puzzle. I love mediating. PerlmanMediation.com, that's our company.
Perfect.
PERLMAN, mediation.com. And for my law practice, for my victims that I represent, it's victimrights.com.
All right.
victimrights.com.
Perfect. We're going to tag it all up for the episode. People,
Thank you.
They'll be able to find you. Thank you, Brian, for coming on. Always appreciate it. Look forward to our
pleasure.
next conversation. To all my viewers and listeners, thank you so much for joining us for Two Taps and Friends. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Like I always say, that helps the channel out a lot when you're doing that. Helps us bring more cool people like Brian on and keep bringing out the good content. We're everywhere. You can follow us on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube, YouTube Music, iHeart. I can't name all of them. We're everywhere. Literally, my marketing team is great. We also now have a website you can go. There's a link at the bottom. You can go buy Two Taps and Friends swag. It's a lot of fun there. Thank you guys all. Thank you for listening. Look forward to our next time. Love you all. Goodbye. Cut.